I've ridden a lot of extra wide or volume shifted snowboards, yet the Bataleon whatever here is both longer and wider than any board I have ever ridden, yet it has the quickest edge-to-edge transition of any board I've ever ridden and does not feel like a boat when I'm doing things like 360s. And that to me, along with a bunch of other reasons, is why I think this is the greatest board of all time for me personally.
Some of the reasons the whatever is so good is due to its 3BT technology, which you can see in this image right here. It's that little outline. Essentially, the board is lifted up, going outwards, making for the board to have three sections, a flat base and an uplift. If you think about it, it is essentially a rockered snowboard, only in the horizontal axis as opposed to the vertical axis. This is exactly why the whatever is the most catch-free cambered snowboard you will ever find on the market. When it starts to feel like you are catching your edge, you start riding on the uplift as opposed to catching your edge. It is almost like the uplift acts as an error zone. I even switched back to a non-3BT board that I rode the entirety of the previous season and immediately found myself sliding out on rails and catching my edge on butters, proving to myself the benefits of catch-free 3BT. The other benefit of 3BT is it makes the board more nimble, which allowed me to drastically size up to a 159 wide. In the past, I was riding a 157 ride twin pig of the same waist width, yet the board actually felt far too big for me. Considering that whatever is even bigger than my previous board, still has the same waist width, yet feels drastically more nimble, proved to me the benefit of 3BT. Even YouTuber WilAlexander attests to sizing up on this board, and he even recommended me a 162 wide, which is just unheard of for me. The benefit of being able to size up without sacrificing anything is it allows you to lay over bigger carves, have a wider platform for balancing on rails, and a longer platform for landing jumps with confidence. You would think sizing up would also help the charging ability of this board, but I do feel it gets a little squirrely when charging flat bass in particular, as the 3BT wants to transition to an edge as opposed to being at a high speed on your flat bass. Another minor disadvantage to sizing up is it is a little harder to swing this board around when doing something like a 360, but when you're taking off of a jump, I feel the 3BT is super quick to activate you into that spin, so it's not really that big of an issue. Just make sure you don't get something too big.
The 3BT also makes for some of the best butters I've ever had on any snowboard I've ridden. The catch-freeness of it allows you to spin with ease and not have to worry about anything, and has allowed me, as a pretty new park rider, to learn butters that I've never done before. And the pressing for these butters is the perfect flex. It's around a 4 out of 10. I'd say the board started more at like a 5 out of 10. But after you ride it for a few weeks, it starts to break in and change more to a 4 out of 10.
One thing I will note about the 3BT is it took me 3 days of riding to get used to. The best advice I can give you towards learning 3BT faster is try putting slightly less pressure on your edges when turning, unless you are prepared to take on a big deep carve. In this clip, I took on the big deep carve when I didn't intend to. This is not a bad problem to have, as once you get used to the 3BT, you can utilize it to your advantage to take on big deep carves at your pleasure.
Now, despite this being a directional twin, for me personally, it rides just as good as any true twin snowboard that I have ridden. There's really not much difference between the nose and the tail. The nose is just a centimeter, I'd say, longer, and has a different shape, which makes it look deceivingly directional, but it's really not. And it's especially because your stance is centered within the contact points, and that really allows it to have that true twin feel. Despite it feeling like a true twin, the shape of the board still allows for some exceptional performance in powder. And the biggest thing that I notice with this shape is it doesn't ache my back foot. A lot of true twin snowboards that I've ridden, I always had this issue where my back thigh would get really sore like 3/4 of the way down the run. And it's probably just because I'm bad, but at the same time, with this board here, I don't feel that at all. And I think it's because of that directional shape.
Going through trees on this board is immaculate. It's almost like this board has a sliding effect where you don't even have to really engage your edge and you can just slither your way through the trees and make such quick, nimble turns so you have full confidence when going through very thick forests. The pop on this board is pretty good. It has a very high camber, allowing you to really snap the board. The issue is the 3BT of the board takes up a lot of space and makes it so there's not much of a nice flat spot on the board for you to engage the pop, which does make the popping a bit harder, but again, the high camber makes up for it.
Even me with size 13 feet would recommend this board to pretty much anyone. You just need to size down a bit on it. They have a ton of different size options and you can really lock in a perfect size for you with this board. I would personally say this snowboard is for any level of experienced riders. I'd put this on a beginner easily. If I was teaching one of my friends, I would say, hey, the first board you want to get, you know, if you really want to invest your money in snowboarding, the first board I'd get is the Bataleon Global Warmer, because when they're learning, they would really have that catch-free ease of this board. You know, intermediate riders like me, this board's great for. And then advanced riders, it might be a little bit soft, and that's why they also make a different version of this board that's actually stiffer. It's really the only difference. I personally had a lot of friends really like boards similar to this Bataleon. Furthermore, SnowboardProCamp and Board Archive, super big fans of those guys. They always recommend Bataleon boards. One board they always recommend is the Bataleon Evil Twin, but I feel like this board is much better than an Evil Twin because it's essentially a Evil Twin, only a zillion times wider, still the same length, but at the same time has that little bit of directional shape, yet doesn't sacrifice the true twinness of the Bataleon Evil Twin, at least in my opinion, from riding both of these two boards. You know, this board still has a centered base, it still has carbon in it, it still has the same kind of 4 out of 10 flex. So the only two things I can think of that could improve this board are firstly asymmetrical side cut. I had that on the Ride Twin Pig, some sort of technology with helping the heel side turns. I would love this on this board because I did like it on the Twin Pig. And the other piece of tech is just 2 extra contact points. The Marhar Lumberjack has it. The board just bumps out in 2 spots, and that's just perfect on icy areas. Me being an ice coaster up here at Vermont, Mount Snow, Corinthia Parks, and Berkshire East, it's really not too bad on the ice, but it could be better with some of those extra contact points. Now, not everyone believes this is the greatest snowboard of all time. That's 100% understandable. In fact, one of the best snowboarders in the world, who I'm a really big fan of, RyanKnapton, had this to say to me when I asked him about the board in his comments section. I've ridden it. It sucked. I rode it for a TV show and that was part of the gig. The interface between edges was so slow, which is surprising to me because it's the fastest of any board I've ridden, and loose compared to a stiffer end cambered board, which is a cambered board. Maybe he rode an old version, I'm not sure. It was even gross getting off the chairlift. I kept having the thought of how do I find my balance on this, which is understandable with it me taking like 4 days of snowboarding to truly get this down. And he said, I love being ultra positive, but this profile board shape was one of the worst experiences I've ever had outside of injuries. So take that from RyanKnapton and understand that I could be totally wrong here. And then again, RyanKnapton does ride like gigantic snowboards, like even more gigantic than this. So again, we're all different riders. Who knows if this is the greatest snowboard for you.
Guys, I spent an insane amount of time editing this video. I would really appreciate it if you subscribed and left a like to boost the algorithm so more people can learn about this snowboard. I just want people to learn and how like be able to find the best snowboards and stuff like that. You know, life tips, that's what I'm about. Stay tuned for next video. I'm making a video about a really unique type of armor that I wear snowboarding, and you should really stay tuned for that. No one on YouTube has really talked about this kind of armor before. And yeah, please subscribe. Thanks for watching my first like really high effort video, and I hope it came out good. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.